The Bible is packed full of other examples of mourning. Think of the many Psalms of lamentation, the book of Lamentations itself. Think of the sense of mourning felt by many women in the biblical accounts who were unable to have children. Take Hannah, for example, and the way she stood in the place of prayer weeping, looking as if she was drunk because her grief was so great. As we begin to approach the tail end of our calendar year, we do not have to go far to encounter the experience of mourning in our church's life or in the country's life. There's Remembrance Day coming up soon. And then think perhaps a little bit more of the story of Christmas in its entirety, where we are exposed to the slaughter of the innocents in Bethlehem and that picture of Rachel weeping for her children. So often we skip over those references. But perhaps we should look more carefully at those verses when we're thinking about Jesus' words in the Beatitudes today. A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more. What an interesting turn of phrase. Refusing to be comforted. I wonder if that's anything that we need to think about as humans who live daily with having to deal with grief. Do we sometimes refuse to be comforted? And is that why Jesus has to come to us to inform us that we will be comforted if we are mourning? Because perhaps some of us actually try and run away from the experience rather than trying to sort out death or to think it through fully. If rather than running away, we come to God and share our thoughts, our feelings, our pain, our horror with God, then we will be comforted. Then our mourning will be capable of being healed. Then we can be brought to a place where we can be comforted. God blesses those people who grieve. They will find comfort. And comfort is exactly what we need when we're grieving. And comfort is quite often what is furthest from us. Our experience, our encounters with grief and with mourning usually leave us feeling anything but comforted. Christine McEwen writes about her encounter with grief, experiencing grief when her brother James shot himself and her sister Kate drowned within a 12-month period. Absence, almost by definition, she writes, cannot be faced head-on. When James and Katie died, I wanted furiously to act, to march straight up to them and know their vanishing, thoroughly, once and for all. I thought I could do my mourning fast and get it over with, choke down the hard fact of the deaths and push on with the business of my own life. Not surprisingly, this turned out to be impossible. Life must go on, people tell each other, but death must go on too. Mourning has a pace and rhythm of its own. It cannot be rushed. For several months after the deaths, I used to wake up crying, my throat choked with unshed tears. Along with this physical upheaval went a mental and emotional and spiritual one. To mourn is to be extraordinarily vulnerable. It is to be at the mercy of those feelings and outside events in a way most of us have not been since early childhood. Grief and desperation, angry tears, they take us over. I remember both craving and resenting touch, both wanting people to talk about the dead and hating it when they did. Perhaps it would be useful to state here that although her experience may mirror something of your own journey with mourning, it may not do so as well. Because everybody's experience of death, everybody's experience of mourning is different. We are all different people with different feelings, different needs and different wants. To deny that is to deny the variety of gifts that God has given us. Too often when mourning, we think there are things we have to do. No two deaths are identical. There may be similarities, but each death is the death of an individual life, the ending of one journey and the commencement of another. And our reactions to death, our mourning, may be different to others' mourning, and may indeed be different depending on the death in question. We may find ourselves surprised when the death of a sister affects us far more deeply and possibly sends us into a deeper sense of inadequacy or depression than the death of our life partner. As Christine McEwen continues, she says, a mourner is a person with a story. The pity is how very rarely it gets told. She proceeds to tell her story of experiencing mourning, and in particular the true friends that supported her through that period. I particularly remember, she writes, one visit to my friend Leonie not long after James's funeral. She made me welcome, gave me tea and so on, but she did not use her kindness as a way to keep me quiet. When I began to talk about James, she encouraged me and asked me questions. For a long time I walked up and down her kitchen, talking and crying, crying and talking. If the stories and the tears grew too much, or the death itself became too sharply focused, I would go to her, and she would hold me for a while. She knew, as I did not just then, that the desperation and the chaos wouldn't last forever. One day I would be well again, coherent, sane. In the meantime, those hugs, that trust, were of immense importance. They allowed me to go down deep into the grief, into the murky, hopeless places where only sobbing lived. And in doing that, they gave me clarity and strength, allowed me what I needed to move on. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. What do Jesus' words mean for us? Those of us who go on this journey, walking alongside, dealing with death and its effects on us. How truly can we be comforted when we are mourning? Jesus says that those who mourn are blessed, and perhaps this is where we do in fact start, by realizing that mourning is part of our journey, part of the human experience, and that we have nothing to fear in our encounters with death, however those encounters come. Somehow, somewhere, Jesus is present in the absence. Yet somehow, so often Jesus does not appear to be there at all. We feel alone, alienated, cut off from the things and people that we knew or thought we knew. Dietrich Bonhoeffer writes, nothing can fill the gap when we're away from those we love, and it would be wrong to try and find anything. We must simply hold out and win through. That sounds very hard at first, but at the same time it's a great consolation, since leaving the gap unfilled preserves the bonds between us. It is nonsense to say that God fills the gap. He does not fill it, but keeps it empty, so that our communion with another may be kept alive, even at the cost of pain. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Once again, we find ourselves sitting here as the subjects of what Jesus is talking about. And perhaps this is what Jesus wants to get over to us. God loves us. God is here with us. We are a blessed people, a people who have God's favour, so our lives should not be lives that are filled with lack, but should instead be filled with plenty, filled with the goodness of God, the joy of the Lord, the beauty of life. God blesses those people who grieve. They will find comfort.